Welcome to the Business Legends Podcast, where we interview business leaders and entrepreneurs so that you can learn from their successes, become inspired, and meet the people that make change happen. I'm the host of the show, Reese Arlen, along with my co-host, who's actually here this week, Christian Webb. Say hello to the people.
Hey.
We are accompanied by Mr. Neil Phasey, who is the COO of X and the founder of Y. The X is Illumin, and the Y is Wishwell. And Neil, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Yeah, thanks so much. I really appreciate the opportunity. It's great.
Yeah, it's been wonderful having coffees with you, and you inspired me already. You spoke about how you were born in the UK and then spent some time in South Africa, but for some reason, whenever you said born in the UK, I was like, I want an English breakfast tea. So it's exactly what I have going on this morning.
And introducing this guy as just a COO of one thing and the passion project of another is crazy because he's owned or been partner of 40,000 businesses.
He is indeed a business legend already. So Neil, tell our listeners a little bit about your story. But I definitely want to get into Illumin and Wishwell. But how did you get there? Let's start at 19 because you were talking about your military experience, and then go from there.
Yeah, so 19 years old, I was fourth in command of a warship in South Africa. My responsibility was the fighting efficiency of the ship, so responsible for weapon systems, and I was responsible for transportation, logistics, and other things on the ship as well. So, I really got to understand human dynamics in very challenging environments at an extremely young age, and it was a great step for me because it really created a really powerful foundation for every other position that I went into, and leadership just came naturally to me after that. I think business was somewhat easy. The learnings of the intricacies of the business and different industries was challenging at times, but the actual leadership aspects and people management aspects it gave me a great foundation in the military. Amazing.
Yeah. Now, how did you? It's not normal for a 19-year-old to be fourth in command on a big warship. So, what was your process like with that? I mean, did you already kind of have an affinity for leadership, or did you want to progress, or how did that work exactly?
Yeah, I think I've had an affinity for leadership right throughout my life, and I think the essence of it is I'm very empathic, and I'm very sensitive, and that can be challenging at times because the world that we live in today, and it's getting better and better, but especially in the last 30 years, being a sensitive leader was not necessarily looked upon in a positive way.
Sure.
Especially for men, it's about hiding our feelings and hiding that sensitivity and being the strong one out there. But the real power is in that sensitivity and the way that you apply it in teams. And, if you look at especially very challenging environments, it's your ability to know that the other person has your back, your ability to understand the other person, be able to hear them, see them, know what they're going through, which creates the power of the team. So that's been fundamentally, I think, the core element of my leadership is this element of compassion and empathy, and we can go into that a bit later.
Yeah. Sure.
Detail, yeah.
You're so right, though, by the way. Just the stigma of hiding your emotions as an executive. Already my skin's crawling because you're saying the word. And I'm like, let's get that out of my brain. Get that out of my brain.
Yeah.
I think, Christian and I I feel very comfortable speaking for Christian. We've been best friends for over a decade and in business together for 7 or 8 or something. But, I think that we kind of consciously made that choice that we're going to be a relationship-focused business. We're gonna focus on how people are doing and care about our team and things like that. They're not just nameless, faceless people that work for us and things like that. So let's advance. So you go from that, and then what happens after the military? What do you end up doing?
Yeah, so I've been in technology my whole life as well. I was hacking computer games at 11 years old, and I've always really loved programming and technology. So after the military, I went into an insurance company, and I ran the computer systems there, and I modified all their networking systems and took it to the next level. And then I went into international trade, and I did the same thing and developed systems for some really large clients of ours like Komatsu and Komdresco trucks. And then just continued my studies in technology and business. And then I was recruited by a consulting firm in South Africa, and I got to get really good at an enterprise resource planning system, which is really bringing together various areas of business: sales, distribution, warehousing, etc. And it all integrates it in business. And at the time in South Africa, there were still large sanctions at play, so we didn't have access to skill sets and consultants outside of the country. So you had to figure everything out. I had to figure out the database, I had to figure out the applications, I had to figure out the business components, everything. And I got really good at it, to the point where the company that owns the software used to call me and say, hey, we've got an issue with something.
You would never even think of that, by the way. Like, you say it like it's just such a common thing. But I never even thought about sanctions and the separation from consulting and just like modern knowledge.
Yeah,
that is interesting.
Well, another thing is that this would have been in the 90s, and I mean the internet changed all of that too. I mean the ability to be resourceful. I could imagine that it changed the whole trajectory of your career back then.
Yeah. I mean, you just had to figure everything out. You had to learn it. You had no other choice, and it was great for me because it gave me insight and skill sets, and my ability to adapt was huge anyway. Right throughout my life, adaptation's been a huge thing. I went to 16 different schools growing up, so I had to learn that at a really young age. And then from there, Deloitte and Touche contacted me and asked if I wanted to come to North America and do the same thing. And then I ended up leaving South Africa. I was supposed to go to San Francisco, but there was some delays in the visa processing, so they asked me to go to Canada. I ended up going there and then traveling back and forth to California every week.
Oh, wow.
So, from Vancouver or like?
No, I was in Toronto, and I was traveling from Toronto to LA or
Flying.
San Francisco. Yeah, every
Not
week.
for me.
So, and then I traveled.
How long is that flight, out of curiosity?
I think it's like 5 hours or so, but it's the time difference.
Oh,
which
sure.
is the challenge. Right?
Yeah.
So,
because you're going east to west, so it's a 3-hour difference, right? Or okay.
Yeah.
Oof, that is not for Christian Webb right there. Christian Webb would pay not to be in such a situation, flying every week. Yeah. So you're going back and forth, and then so you're working with Deloitte. And how long was that for?
It was about 7 years. So I was in senior management there, and then I ended up working in their outsourcing practice and helping develop their worldwide outsourcing delivery model. And then I ended up leaving there and creating my own company, my first startup, and that startup was all about remote work and working with companies to support them in enabling and empowering remote work teams. And that was back in 2004.
I was going to say, it's somewhat normal now, but back then that was probably unheard of.
Yeah, and we didn't have the technology back then, and there were various constraints. But the model that I was working on was, basically, what WeWork brought into place later on. And that was, creating communities, a local community. So instead of you having to commute, a distance to work, you'd go to a local community work environment and connect with other people and do your work that way. But I also worked with First Nations communities in Canada, trying to figure out how to utilize remote work to support some of the challenges in their remote communities. Because there's a lot of brain drain happening, and as soon as somebody wants a job, they leave the community to go into cities and urban areas, and then that talent and that potential is lost in those communities. So I was working with them to find how we could utilize remote work to actually retain that intellectual capital and that talent within these communities and support them, and also deal with various other challenges that they were having around addictions because of lack of purpose and various other things. So that was really interesting piece of work.
No kidding. I want to talk a little bit about entrepreneurship as a subject matter. So you've done all these different things that have honed your skills, which have now, I'm sure, transferred into what you do now with Illumin and Wishwell. Was there anything particularly that called you to entrepreneurship, or you're talking about this particular remote work startup that you did? Was there any particular reason that you wanted to do that?
I think it's my yearning for constant change. That's really what it is. It's the excitement of doing something new. I'm always ahead of the game. I'm always looking for the next thing. And I have this cycle where it begins with stress because I'm learning something brand new, and that stress in of itself is giving me this excitement and adrenaline. And then I get to the point where I know it inside out. I knock it out of the park, but then I go into the next phase, which is boredom.
Okay.
Right? And then so it's this
God,
cycle.
he sounds like you, by the way.
I was literally just thinking that. I was sitting here going, I told him about us starting this painting. I told him that we're starting this second painting company or whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm literally going through that phase right now. Like
Yeah.
I'm learning the processes, learning the sales, learning the strategies, learning the estimating, learning the Excel sheets, learning everything I need to know to make it work. And as soon as it gets working, I'm gonna be like, okay, so Reese, you want to invest in another company, or you want to?
There are two moments, not to get totally off on a sidebar here, but there are
that's so
two
true.
moments where you'll never see Christian Webb more excited. The first is when he's tackling something new, just like that, and the second is when somehow or another he's irritating me, and that's
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
and that is just how we work. That's how we operate. So it's just that yearning for change. You know, you saw it. Now, just one more entrepreneurial question. You know, did you identify a problem? So when you were focusing on the remote work, for instance, and you decide, hey, you know, I've done this consulting, I have my military experience. You know, did you see something? Like, did you see a need for something, and then you just went for it, or you know, was there some kind of grand moment or decision where you were like, I got to do this right now, type of thing?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it's a combination of things.
Sure.
I think, you know, the one part of it is I always align with something I'm passionate about.
Sure.
So when I get excited and passionate about it, this is when I have this yearning for like this detailed research, and I really want to understand it. So that's the one thing that drives me. But the other part is this, you know, I have this component of me, you know, one of my key strengths is this futuristic piece, which is I'm always looking into the future. What's better? What's next? What's going to be here in the next 3 years? And then identifying how to work out the path to get there. And that really stimulates me. So I think the combination of passion and my futuristic thinking, and then my pragmatism, which blends into that, is some of the key elements.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's fast forward a little bit. When do you get involved with Illumin? How did that come about?
Yes, it was a really interesting story. So, you know, after I did that startup, I then I also went into another area of consulting in healthcare. I partnered with a couple of people. We started a pretty large healthcare consulting company. You know, we had about 200 odd consultants. Wow. And medical practitioners, because we also had 5 healthcare clinics and a healthcare construction company. And we created an interesting model, because what we found was that healthcare projects needed healthcare specialists as well as technologists and business experts. And healthcare specialists were looking for other things to do. So by having the clinics and the consulting firm, we were able to have the medical specialists in the clinics delivering the services, the healthcare services in the clinics, but also help on the projects, which made them happy because they were doing these other interesting things to actually help enhance the healthcare system through this consulting work. So that really gave me some depth and insight into healthcare, and I did that for like 6-7 years.
And the construction was to help the clinics expand?
Yeah, what happened there is we built a couple of clinics partnering with a company, and then we were like, well, why wouldn't we just build them ourselves, you know? So we ended up buying that company and then building clinics for other people as well.
Now you could probably get government subsidies just to build clinics.
You may have seen, I loved how nonchalant you were about that, by the way. You said, yeah, we started this company. We had about 200 people. And then, you know, we also did a construction company. And then you just carried on with it. It's like normal life for you.
Yeah, well, I mean, some of these things are just organic, right?
Yeah.
They're organic opportunities that you look at and you review and it seems to make sense. We'll go for it. Some work, some don't work.
Sure.
You know, but the key is just, you know, taking the next step. Just taking the next step and adapting as quickly as you can.
Yeah.
Because, you know, you never know what the right path is, ever. You think you know. You think you know. You think you have an opinion. Other people have opinions. But until you take the step, you never know. So, you know, my view is take the step, learn and adjust. Take the step, learn and adjust. Yeah. And as long as you're taking the next step, you're moving.
Yeah, in our industry, we've been taught that so many times.
Oh, yeah.
Like, there's been like a dozen times, or probably like 100 times, that a companies came on and like sometimes we don't accept contracts we don't believe in. There's all there's really to it, and we'll like completely not believe in a project, and then the project will actually take off. And it'll be like, dadgummit, we were completely wrong. And then sometimes we're spot on, you know, like we were just, because we don't want to take people's money if we don't believe in their model, you know.
Right.
We feel like it's unfair.
Yeah. Well, let me get to your question on Illumin.
Oh yeah,
it's an interesting path. So this is where, you know, things also started going sideways because you know, at the time, you know, I was very stressed. You know, we had pretty quick growth in the business. It ended up being very stressful. There were various things happening in the business which were really stressful. I wasn't at home much. My younger sister, who was 21, died of a heroin overdose in South Africa. And I had a massive amount of guilt coming up around that, that I wasn't there to support her, etc. I'd left the country. There was that, and then I had a concussion playing ice hockey, and I went into a major clinical depression. And I tried everything to get out of it, but I couldn't, and I ended up having to go onto medication. And unfortunately, while the medication absolutely helped me get through the night, it also made me very apathetic, and it really had a negative impact on my relationships. And I needed to figure a way out. And this is where I met my business partner, with Wishwell, and we'll get onto that next, who's a doctor, a chiropractic doctor, but specializes in brain health. And got to know him. We became really good friends, and I started delving into meditation, and then ended up traveling the world on meditation, learning like the depths of meditation, and eventually learning how to help myself get off of the medication through meditation and various other forms. Now, I've also been an executive coach for almost 20 years. And my coaching changed. In the beginning it was, tell me what you want to achieve, I'll help you get there. And now it's, I focus on, let's find out who you want to be. And then the who you want to be will get you where you want to go. And that's been a big change and a big impact on me working through my depression. So, everything I teach is something that I've applied in my own life. And on that meditation journey, I ended up meeting my wife, Kristen. I was divorced in my previous relationship, and we met, and Kristen has a background in occupational therapy and coaching, especially with parents and children. And I have a background in coaching and corporate change management and transformation. So on this journey, we said, wow, what if we created a company to teach corporate America how to manage their emotional state? And it's very important, because for most people, they believe that the way you feel is a resultant effect of the environment or what's happening around you. Juan said something to me and made me angry, but that's not really what happens. That happens in a default mode of operation. But what's really happening is Juan says something to me. I then decode and interpret what Juan says. And that interpretation results in a thought pattern, which then triggers a electrochemical reaction in my body, which we call emotions. Now, if we can intercept that process, then we can manage our state of being, which is how we feel in the moment. And our state of being is the core element of our expression. So anything I say, anything I do is primarily impacted through my perception, which is massively impacted by my emotional state. And so we said, hey, let's build this program and go and teach corporate America how to manage their emotional state and empower teams, create more connected, compassionate teams. So we did this, and we started delivering it to a number of corporations. And then one of our clients was Illumin. And at the time, it was called Acuity Ads. We've rebranded since. And we ran a program with their executive team. Things were going well. And then the CEO, who's an amazing visionary, asked if we would run a strategy retreat for them. So we went and ran the strategy retreat, and it was different to any other strategy retreat that experienced, because we focused on human connection. And back to your point about relationships, all major problems in life are interpersonal relationship problems. And so our focus was on, how do we get connection within this team? How do we remove the barriers to communication? How do we teach this team how to communicate compassionately with each other, before getting into the details? Anyway, the strategy went well, and then the CEO called us in afterwards and say, how about you just work for us?
Yeah, how about doing this full time?
Yeah, exactly. and it was really hard for Kristen and I, because we'd created this baby of ours. We call the company TRP Collaborative, the Red Pill Collaborative.
Oh, interesting.
And it was basically, once you learn this new knowledge, there's no stepping back from it. Because really, it's all about taking accountability of your life situation. And most people believe that, where they are today is determined by their history. And to a degree, it is. But there's another element of it, and that is that we create history by what we do in the moment. History does not determine us unless we allow it to determine us. But in order for that to operate, we need to take full accountability of where we are and what we're doing and our full state. That the way I'm feeling is my accountability. It's not yours. It's not me to blame you or to blame the environment. It's mine. So anyway, we we had a long discussion and said, wow, are we willing to let this go? And ultimately the conclusion was, to an extent, it's easy to train from the outside because you are not a fundamental component of the problem. You're an outside entity. So we thought, wow, this will be an amazing challenge for us to actually be inside a corporation, doing this work from the inside. And being an executive in that corporation, you're ultimately held to account for what's happening. There's no separation, right?
Right.
Whereas as an external coaching factor, it's like, hey, I'll teach you, I'll show you, but ultimately you've got to deal with it. So we made the decision that it would be a great experience for us to go and do it. And the pivotal point was that the CEO said, Neil, I want you guys to come in and I want you to transform this company. We want to move, from being a services company to a product company, but I want to do it in a people-centered, conscious way. And that's what really made it all worthwhile, because that is a very challenging task. Like it's so this is a publicly traded company, amazing technology, great set of people, but doing a transformation pivot like that from services to product and doing it with the core of being conscious and people-centered is a huge challenge and a huge opportunity. So that's how I ended up.
And how long ago did you? How long ago was your first retreat with Illumin, and then how long ago did you kind of step in full time with Illumin?
Yeah, it was probably just over 2.5 years ago, and then October, both Kristen and I have been there 2 years.
Okay.
And I joined as the Chief Operating Officer, and Kristen joined in an amazing role called the Chief Empowerment Officer.
Oh, that's cool.
And her role is really to support and be with every single individual in the company. And she offers individual coaching to every single person who wants it in the company.
Wow.
She runs programs around psychological safety and compassionate communication. So all around interpersonal relationships, whether it's inter-team or intra-team. And I think it's a really, really powerful role.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, that is you're talking about being forward thinking and kind of state of the art. And I mean, I've never heard of that before, but I know a lot of companies are kind of transitioning into doing that type of thing.
So can you tell us a little bit about the company?
Yeah, so Illumin is a ad tech technology company. So we have a really unique platform. Most ad tech platforms are almost like Excel spreadsheets. They're line item based driven. So you create a campaign structure in line items, whereas ours is all a drag and drop. So you would drag your audience in and then you'd create different stages. And the key is that it's a journey advertising platform. And we're actually extending it to be a journey marketing platform. So the core element is programmatic advertising, which is everything on the open web. And we do billions and billions of transactions a day.
Wow.
Because in milliseconds we've got to identify the audience match to the potential advertising space and bid on that ad space and then deliver the ad within
Also, when you
milliseconds.
create this journey, it actually acts on that and creates everything
That's right.
for it?
Yeah, so I'd create the journey. We'd have an awareness phase, an engagement phase, and a conversion phase. And each of those we can create different sequences in. So, for example, I pull in an audience. Let's say I want to sell an F-150 truck. So I pull in an audience of home improvement specialists. And then I say, hey, I want them to see a video clip, I want them to see an audio clip, and I want them to see a native ad. And then I create a line and I say, okay, once they've seen this once, move on to the next stage.
Where does
once
this all
they've seen
go?
this twice.
What platforms does this act on?
So this acts on various. You mean what do you mean when you say
Like
platforms?
what mediums does it use?
The open web. So when you go onto a website page, let's say Yahoo Finance, and you see little advertising banners.
Okay.
That's where it's. So when you're on that page, it's identifying that someone who looks like you is looking at that
So
page.
it's like newsletters, banners.
Yeah, it's
blog posts,
on the
all that
websites.
stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and then so you'll create these multiple streams and link them all together, and then press publish, and you publish that. And then we've got a cool feature called our Pathlight report. So at any point in time, you can hit this Pathlight, and it'll tell you the optimum road to conversion.
Wow.
And then other cool features like within it, you can based on a certain path that audiences have taken, you can extract a sub audience out of that and then do a campaign targeting that sub-audience as well.
Wow.
We'll have to try this for a couple of
That'd be cool for sure. Yeah. So you're at Illumin. So where does Wishwell come about, and how long ago did that begin?
Right. So Wishwell began 6 or 7 years ago.
Okay. So this is before Illumin then.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah. And
by the way, shout out. You are. I don't know what number episode you are, but somewhere in the 80s or 90s.
We only
now.
charge $2,000 per plug.
and you are the first one to ever bring us a T-shirt, so you're already in the top 5 just based on that.
You got to mention Viking though. They brought us a cup.
Yeah. Jay brought us a cup, so he's definitely in top 5 too. I'm not gonna tell you where you guys are in top 5, but hey, I mean that's pretty good. That's pretty good.
Part of the mystery.
So tell us about Wishwell and tell us about the super cool logo design thing that you have, and you have it on here and your shirt.
That's right.
So,
yeah.
Yep.
So again, another amazing organic just startup. So again, this started with my business partner, Dr. Scott Levine, who's an amazing healer. You know, he uses chiropractic, sound healing, light therapy, and specializes in brain health. And I went to him originally because of my concussion and my depression. And you know, we went together to this meditation retreat, and we had such an amazing experience. And we looked at each other afterwards and said, wow, what if we could utilize technology to bring the power of group meditation around the globe? So we actually started off designing an app around meditation for group meditation, not individual meditation. And the entire app was designed through our insights that we got through meditation. Like the colors, the design of that entire logo actually came through a meditation that I had. And it's a Fibonacci sequenced mathematically coded symbol. And all the data came through while I was doing a meditation, and then we put it all together. And it was going to be the logo of our original app. And we looked at each other and said, hey, this is really cool. What if we had a tattoo? But we were both a little skeptical of getting a permanent tattoo.
Yeah.
So Scott went and created some temporary tattoos, and we took them to a meditation retreat with us. But the way we created them was as a blessing. And it was, remember back to this, our biggest issues are interpersonal relationship issues. And it was an opportunity for us to connect with another human being in an authentic way. So basically the blessing was that you ask the other person, you know, what's your wish? How can I support you? So say somebody, you know, I'm going through a really stressful time, or I'm challenging, would you mind just, you know, seeing me in peace? And there's a lot of science behind this. Like there is quantum mechanics in entanglement, that each of our energy influences each other. There's epigenetics, which is the expressions of genes based on environmental conditions. And there's various other things which are actually involved in the science, and I'll go into it in a little more detail now. But basically, you ask the person, what can I hold for you? And then you put the tattoo on, and you just spend a minute in human connection with them. And then every time that person looks at that tattoo, they remember that experience that they had with you. And that memory evokes an imagination or a memory response. You know, imagination is just a memory projected into the future. And it engages your emotional system by creating the electrochemical signals in your body. So everybody just loved it. And, you know, we've distributed over 110,000 of these around the world.
Oh, wow.
You know, we have this symbol on a tribute album for the Beatles. And, you know, we've done activations at Tony Robbins events, various things. So it's really an opportunity to authentically connect with another person and then have this visual marker of that connection. So that's how it all started. And then over time, we modified it to be, you know, more of an app which created an environment of safety to ask for support from your friends and family. And the essence of the app is basically you create a wish, and that wish is your ask for support or your request for support. And then you rally your friends and family and community to support you. And the way that they support you is by doing a 60-second blessing. And that blessing can either be in the form of a prayer or a meditation, whatever fits your lifestyle. And the science behind it is incredible. I mean, there was a book written by these two amazing doctors called Compassionomics. And it outlines all of the science and the data proving that compassion has a material impact on healthcare outcomes, on healthcare costs, and on the way people treat themselves. So, and one of the key discoveries they found is that it only takes 40 seconds of compassion to have a meaningful impact on a medical outcome, or a meaningful impact on somebody's life. And most of the excuses for people with compassion is, I don't have the time to be compassionate. Well, science is very clear now that 40 seconds of compassion has a material impact. So what the app actually allows you to do is rally your friends and family around supporting you. And so basically, I ask you for support. You do a blessing for me as a prayer or meditation. And then every time you do that, and then after you do it, you can put a personal note like, hey, Neil, I hope you feel better, or you can record it by voice. And then every time somebody does that for me, I get a notification with that note saying, hey, Reese just did a meditation for you, or Chris just did a prayer for you. And that actually creates this sense of human connection. And what happens in the body is that our autonomic system has two states. It has a sympathetic state, which is our fight or flight, and the parasympathetic state, which is the relaxed state. And basically what's happening is when you're in the fight or flight state, your body is not repairing or looking after itself. It's in a defense mode. And when you're feeling sick or you're feeling down, you want your body to be repairing yourself. Well, the more human connection, the more sense of human connection you have, the more engaged your parasympathetic system is. So your body's in more of a repair mode. And we had a great experience because we built the Alpha app during COVID. Scott's mother-in-law was going through chemotherapy, and she was alone in the hospital. And we had her on the Alpha test app. And she would get on Zoom calls with Scott every week and say, hey, I just received like 10 blessings from people I don't even know. I got, Mary sending me love and Peter sending me love. And she was like, it was just so amazing. I felt connected. And we had, numerous other stories of amazing results which came through the Alpha app. So basically what we've done is we have discovered a way through technology to facilitate the act of compassion, and compassion is the action of supporting another person. So if you look at empathy, there's two pieces to it. There's cognitive, there's emotional empathy, which is I can feel what you're going through, and then there's cognitive empathy, which is I can understand what you're going through, and then there's compassion, which is I am now willing to take a concrete action to support you in what you're going through. So one of the key things we found is that it's very important for somebody to ask for something in order to receive it. And this is where the wish comes in. The wish is your ask. And then the blessing response is the act of compassion. And the other cool thing that we've done is that we've created a compassion map. So every act of compassion is captured on a compassion map so that we can share with the world the amount of compassion and love that there actually is. Because one of the challenges we have, we live in a world where we don't believe it's a loving, compassionate world. So therefore we act accordingly. Well, the more we can understand and realize that we are living in a loving, compassionate world, the more we will start acting that way as well. So there's three elements in this app. There's the person asking for the support and receiving it, who gets the benefit. There's the person giving the support, who also gets a benefit. And then there's the person observing all of the love and support that's happening in the world, and that's also having a material impact on your electrochemical reactions in your body.
It's an incredible thing. I was just talking with Tesh. Excuse me, Tesh was my was a podcast guest last week, and we were talking about it's easier to be connected than it has ever been in human history. I mean, we have cell phones. I can call somebody in South Africa tomorrow if I wanted to. I can email somebody; they'll have it in a second. We have all these great social media platforms and applications and things like that. And yet, I feel like we're more disconnected than we've ever been as a consequence. We were talking about the example that I used was you go to a grocery store, and how many people do you pass when you're at a grocery store? Maybe 50 plus or minus type of thing. And how many people do you say hello to? How many people do you greet, wave at, smile? That type of thing. And human beings are we're meant to be pack animals. That's why the absolute worst thing that you can do to somebody is put them in solitude. So it's an absolutely incredible thing that you've done. So what from a strictly entrepreneurial standpoint, you have this vision of what you want to create. And so did it start with so it starts with meditation, and then did it go the next step there? Did it go into the the logo you've designed from there, or did you guys decide you wanted to do an app, or what was the function like with that?
Yeah, the initial impetus was creating a meditation app. But,
Okay.
But the difference to other meditation apps was that, if you look at Headspace or Calm or things like that, you're really meditating for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You're meditating to achieve this state of calm. Ours was all focused on meditating for somebody else.
Sure.
Right? It's me meditating on your behalf. And that's where the big difference came in, and doing it in a group format. This is then when the logo, or the symbol came to be. And really this, from our perspective, this symbol is all about unity and compassionate connection. It's the coming together. It is this relationship. Nothing exists in the absence of relationship. Like, it's relationship that is the real thing. It's not the two elements, it's the relationship that exists between them, which is the real important thing. So that's where that came from. And then, really we went through one of the largest startup incubators in the world, and we changed, we originally had called this app 01, and we changed it to Wishwell. So that
what was the, if you don't mind my asking, what was the meaning behind 01?
Yeah, well, the zero and one being the nothing and the everything.
Right.
Right. So almost like the yin and the yang.
Mm-hmm.
You have chaos and you have order. One cannot be without the other. So it's that connection. And then the other thing with the 01 is that it's the essence of technology as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So I was thinking binary, naturally.
That's
I was
cool.
thinking that.
I would have went with the rebrand too.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
the Wishwell lines very well with like the fact that you ask the wish.
Agreed.
It just goes well.
Right. And one of the biggest challenges with that when we were in this incubator was we were an unknown model, because the questions are always, what's the financial model? What's the financial model? And our response was always, this isn't about that. This is about creating compassionate, connected communities. Mm-hmm. That's what it's about. And that was our passion. And that's the key, is hold to your passion and hold to your mission. Know what your purpose is and hold to that, because there's going to be a lot of people trying to take you off of that mission and trying to take you off that purpose. And that's where you've got to be really strong. And we now do know what future opportunities are, but they're nothing like anything that's been seen in current social media. So the way we've created this app is it has no manipulating algorithms built into it whatsoever. The data that you get is only data that you ask for. The communities that you create are your communities, and the ones that you set up and the ones that you join. Mm-hmm. There's no information that's shared. The only thing that's there is acts of compassion. And the way that you create a wish, there's 4 intentions: health, peace, abundance, or love. So I'm asking for one of those 3 things, and I'm getting response for 4 things. I'm getting response for one of those 4 things. So everything that happens is either to get support, receive support, or see the loving support that's happening in the world. But the key thing there is holding strong to your mission. Mm-hmm. Because, I think 85 of us started in this and 15 people graduated. And, sometimes I look at it and I don't know how we made it through, because we didn't have a lot of support for the model that we were trying to put forward. Because everybody was pushing us, no, but what's the financial
model?
Yeah. What's the financial model? What's the financial model? And we held strong. And we had actually some great advisors, a couple of really good advisors, who said to us, hold strong, because every time you try to inject the financial element to this, you break it.
You do. It's because it's a passion project.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right. And there is huge upside to it. There's massive upside to it. But that will come as long as we achieve the mission, which is supporting and creating compassionately connected communities.
Mm-hmm.
That is hard to say quickly too.
As soon as you're like $14.99 a month to receive your compassion,
yeah,
it kind of loses its
luster.
It's luster. It's no longer oiled.
Yeah, for certain. Well, we're just about out of time. Can't wait to have lunch with you. It'll be a lot of fun. And this is usually where, at the end of the show, we like to ask something fun to kind of leave our listeners off on, type of thing. The only question that I have for you is that if you go back in time and you could speak to yourself, the 19-year-old on the warship type of thing, what advice would you give yourself, and are you surprised that you ended up where you are?
You're really coming out with that basic resume question. What's wrong with you?
Sell me this pen.
What are you, 20? What are you, 22?
All right, then you come up with something.
No,
you don't have
it's
to
your
answer
job.
mine.
It's your job.
Oh, it's my job. It's my job.
You can go and answer
Mr. I didn't show up for the podcast last week. I'll put you on deck about that, Mr. Oh, I got sick.
It's about him, not you, Reese.
Okay, all right.
So yeah, there's two answers to that. So the one, what would I tell myself? Be more gentle with yourself. Be more gentle with yourself. That is the most important advice I would give to myself. Be gentle and be compassionate with yourself. And am I surprised at where I am? Absolutely.
Really?
And that's a great thing.
Yeah.
I think it's great because I could never have predicted my path. And that's been awesome for me too, because we plan surprise out of our lives to keep ourselves safe. But it's the surprise in life that makes life what it is.
That is very true. That is excellent. Well, Mr. Neil, thank you so much for joining us today, and can't wait for lunch.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Yeah.
Really appreciate it, guys.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.